Okay. Um, right. Well, thanks again for doing this, Todd. I'm just going to introduce you very quickly by the bio you sent me. So I'll just read it out quickly. So, and correct me if I pronounce your surname incorrectly, but Todd Gorishek, is that correct?
Yeah, it's Gorishek. Gorishek.
Gorishek. Okay. A man's empowered action coach has been involved in men's self-development and self-improvement work for almost 20 years because of his own journey into deep introspection, self-discovery, and self-actualization. He began helping other men do the same. After 15 years informally coaching and working with hundreds of men, he left his successful career as a clinical hospital pharmacist to formalize his life coach training with Newfield Network. Today, Todd helps men take action to make decisions, maintain boundaries, and ask for what they want at home or at work. Todd is an expert in helping men to eliminate fear, change sabotaging thoughts, and identify their next steps forward. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
I think you've done a great job. I think that pretty much sums up what I do. Thank you.
Yes, I remember because we've worked together before, and that was one of the things I remember you saying about one of the things that inhibits us from moving forward is the sabotaging thoughts. That's one of the things I've really kind of come to terms with myself. It's things people aren't really aware of, are they?
No, they're not. They're the beliefs we carry around that end up sabotaging us and preventing us getting what we want in life, basically. And so we have to become aware of them and look at them and reframe them, and then we move forward really well.
Yeah, and this is something that we could definitely sort of implement at school. Just out of interest, then, what do you, from your personal perspective, what do you think of the current schooling system?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been in it, and I have two grown sons who are in their 30s now. So it's been a long time since I've seen it with them. But I am not a believer in formal education. I think it provides a lot of good for someone who definitely knows what they want to do and needs to acquire the information and knowledge to do it. I don't think it works well for people's creativity. I don't think it works well helping people develop skills to think outside the box.
Yep.
It's still a one-size-fits-all approach, and that doesn't work. So it's a challenge.
What was that, sorry?
I said it's a challenge. It's a challenge for people in the system and out of the system, right? I mean, it's bad.
It blows my mind that it hasn't really moved on that much, especially the world that we live in now. I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, I look on YouTube now and I see people making money doing the most obscure kind of videos, like teasing their mum or playing with their dog, and they get thousands and thousands of views, and they're making money from this. And you think,
yeah,
not that necessarily anyone should kind of work towards doing things like that, because it is just a bit of fun after all. But the platform now to make money online, you have a massive audience. At school, the 9 to 5 mentality, maybe we're at that crossroads, I think, possibly.
Could be. We certainly have the technology and the information available to everyone in some form that we don't need necessarily formal education. But again, that's going to require a whole different skill set, either to teach yourself or to be in a group of people that share the same interests you have and you continue the learning process. Because learning and action are key to anything we do in life. We got to get it.
I think the action's more important. I think that's one thing I struggled with. I was one of these people that did a lot of kind of self-development, read a lot online, read books and stuff, but I never took action. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't.
Right.
Only when I started to take action, that's when things started to change.
You're absolutely right. Nothing happens without action. And so we learn something and we take action with it. We learn a little more and we take action with it. And that's just the process. That's how we grow. That's how we develop. That's how we embrace our full potential. It's just can't do one without the other.
And would you agree with this as well? Little steps, not starting off, because sometimes you've got an outcome that you want to achieve, and even though you want it a lot, you don't necessarily believe you can achieve it. And that's one thing that I always struggle with, is I try to do too much too soon. Even Tony Robbins is an advocate of that. He says take massive action. I don't agree with that. I think start small.
I am a believer in the small steps, and so this is how you can tell what's happening. If you set a goal, if you decide you're going to do something and nothing's happening, you're not making progress, then what that tells you is that next step that you have, it's too big. And so it needs to be chopped down to the point that you can do the next thing. You can take the next smallest action. You can take the next smallest step. If you can't do that, it's too big. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%, because then if it's too big, you let yourself down when you don't achieve it. So just small and often, just little steps each time. I know it seems so obvious, but yeah, it's something that probably needs to be emphasized.
Right. What you're also saying is consistency, right? Consistency to form habits, to achieve goals. It's consistency and action. Put those two together and you'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So I'll just give you a rundown of what I'm doing. So I'm going to build a website, and I want to offer different courses for children ages between sort of 13, 14 to 18 who are at school, learn life applicable skills, from learning about money, investments, debt, also learning about health and fitness, why we should exercise, why we should eat good nutrition, success principles I think should be taught at school, not necessarily something outside afterwards. And there's 8 core areas. And so what I'm doing now is I'm interviewing experts in their field. You're the first one, Todd. And then I've got some others coming up over a couple of weeks. And I want to ask everyone, all these experts, the same sort of core questions. The first one being, what do you think, success-wise, success principles, what are the main ones that we need to consider teaching children of those age groups?
From my perspective, what I seek, because I work with adult men, I'm a men's life coach. What I see happening is dealing with a lot of the issues of self-perception, issues of responsibility, issues of integrity, issues that involve who we are, who you are as a person, right? So in order to be successful, the first thing we need to know is like who we are and what we're about. And so that's like authenticity. That involves self-esteem. That involves self-acceptance. Those are huge principles. If we could teach some of that by the time a young person is ready to head out in the world, that would eliminate so many obstacles and blocks in their mind to achieve. And it would also invigorate them, empower them, enable them to take the actions that they need to do to create what they want to in life. And so I think the educational system is missing this piece of helping young people understand who they are as a person and the value they hold. They're missing the issues of responsibility and consequences. They're missing the ability or concepts of creativity and design and self-awareness to create. So know who you are. That's about self-esteem. Understand accountability, responsibility, and consequences. And encourage creativity, dreaming, and just thinking outside the box. if a person then enters the world to create the life for them, having a solid foundation in those things, then me as a life coach dealing with adult men, or, you know, a life coach who deals with men and women, whatever, we don't have to undo so much of that thinking that was needing reframing, getting rid of the false beliefs, because it's those things that get in our way to achieve anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in this discussion that you and I are having, I would really like to spend a little bit of time talking with some of those aspects of self that
That's what I was asking. How do you unpick the layers of self-acceptance? That really interests me. What do you mean by that?
Okay. So Nathaniel Brandon wrote a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem.
Okay.
And in this book, it's a really great book, by the way, for anyone who wants to understand the process of building self-esteem. But part of self-esteem, there's 2 things. Self-esteem is our awareness of who we are in the world, our awareness of our being. And it's important to have a positive self-esteem. It's important to accept and love and embrace who we are as human beings. It's the foundation. And within self-esteem is self-acceptance, right? And self-acceptance are the things that we can actually work on, are the things that we can do to create this solid foundation or solid self-esteem. So one of the things in self-acceptance is you have to love and value yourself just because you're a human being, just because you live and breathe and you exist in the world. So that's hard for some people. If you've had yeah.
How do you teach that? What kind of principles do you educate?
Well, I think you need to talk about dignity. You need to talk about respect. You need to talk about value. Not monetary value, but value, innate value, right? And so if we can provide an environment, if we can provide an area where young people are allowed to just love and embrace themselves exactly as they are, and be loved and embraced as exactly as they are, to be recognized, to have real value, that goes a long way right there. Okay, so that's one piece of like building self-esteem.
Right. Okay.
The other piece is acceptance of ourselves, all of ourselves, right? So I have bad thoughts, or I have angry emotions, or I have emotions that I don't like, or there's things about myself that I don't like, right? Whether they're emotional, whether they're thoughts, whether it's physical. We need to do a better job teaching our kids to accept themselves exactly as they are. And it doesn't mean that they have to stay that way, right? It just means it's okay that you've got bad thoughts, or it's okay that like sometimes you're angry, or it's okay that, you weigh more than you want to weigh, or whatever it is, I don't know. Because if we're not resisting, if we're not pushing back or suppressing those parts of ourselves that we really don't like, and we can accept them, then we can work on them, right? I mean, men that I deal with have anger issues, right?
Yep.
And a lot of the stuff that creates their anger issues are thoughts and feelings that they've never been able to address or accept about themselves. And if we can accept it, then we can change it. We can work on it. We can grow. Okay. So So acceptance is a huge piece, and acceptance doesn't mean that you're not responsible for making your life what you need it to be. It doesn't mean you're not responsible for living healthy and, keeping yourself healthy. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I've got going on. And it's okay. I'm okay. And I can work from here. So then the next piece, what did you say, Ben?
I was going to say, I'm with you. So you're accepting just where you are, but just also be mindful of the fact that it's not forever. You can grow.
Exactly. It doesn't make you a bad or horrible person to have qualities or things that are not very attractive or very nice. Okay? I don't know what other words to use. But it doesn't mean that you can't work on them. It doesn't mean that you can't change them in a way that works more for the lifestyle and the person that you want to be. But you can't deny it. You can't shove it in a closet and pretend it's not there, because then you can't work on it. Can't grow.
What about this as a point? Is there any kind of sort of inhibiting, limiting beliefs that we have that we're not aware of? Do you do any kind of, or do you have any practical methods to become aware of thoughts?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because for years I've become aware of that I have certain beliefs that have been with me all my life and literally until the last sort of couple of years. Is there anything that you could mention that would allow you people to become, I suppose, mindful, aware that they have limits?
There is a good awareness piece, and I use this for myself in my life because I continue to discover beliefs, and I continue to discover things about me as I'm doing my own journey. But this is what I've learned. If we can follow the emotion, so there's an emotion, something happens, and I have a reaction. I'm sad, I'm angry, something's happened, and the emotional response is generally greater than what happened. Like, someone cut me off in traffic. And I just go ape shit, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's an emotion. So the emotion, I need to follow that emotion. The emotion is I'm very angry, and it lives in me, and I can feel it. And if I just relax a minute and think about when I first experienced that emotion, it will usually take me to an event where I created a belief about myself that wasn't true. I mean, I thought it was true back then, usually as a kid. But that is the belief. So the example is I get cut off in traffic, and the emotional response is so great. It's not about the being cut off in traffic, because what it did is it just triggered a belief like I'm not respected and I don't have value, right? Some event happened in my past, and I attached that meaning to the belief. And so now that's showing up when someone does something. It's like, who the hell cares? All right, cut me off. Maybe he's in a hurry. He's got to go to the hospital. I mean, what story are we telling ourselves, right?
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the answer to your question is follow the emotion and you'll find the belief.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you find this is why people, not that it's probably necessary, but this is just a side point, but people drink a lot and they indulge in kind of activities that can be harmful to suppress that emotion?
Yeah, exactly. Any form of anything that numbs us, anything that puts us in a state where we're not addressing what we're feeling is an activity to escape who we are, what we're feeling, the thoughts that we're having, and ultimately those all sabotage us in our lives in order to, I don't care if it's just you watch TV or you eat too much food or you, whatever it is that you do, if you're doing it at the expense of addressing what's going on with you, it'll be very difficult to proceed in life in a full and whole way.
Absolutely. I think that's actually it is relevant, especially to youngsters that overeat or are largely overweight, but even teenagers who go out drinking. I know when I was younger, we used to drink all the time. Look forward to the weekend, live for the weekend, and just get really, really drunk. Put it, put
Yeah.
it. But I think that was driven by emotion. It was kind of it was a release that we were looking for because we would go to school. For me, I just didn't get anything out of it. I found it very boring. Or work as well was very mundane, as it is for everybody, mostly. But yeah, it was kind of a release. It was a release. That's what the drinking was about.
Okay. I think for me, let me just share. So I was drinking as well as a high schooler, which now, I mean, you go to jail or your parents go to jail. I mean, it's just a totally different thing now. But part of what that was for me was wanting to fit in. And again, it goes back
Yep.
to self-esteem. And if a person has a good self-esteem and a solid foundation, it makes being able to make decisions about what you will do and what you won't do easier,
Yeah.
more clear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically,
Right.
self-acceptance is there's this baseline that I inherently have value and worth, and I'm important because I'm a living, breathing human being. And then there is the acceptance of myself in all myself, all my flaws, all my warts, everything. And from that place, I can grow and I can move in directions that I want to be and become. And then the other part is when I make a mistake, have self-compassion. I don't know if you're like me and everyone else, but I'm my biggest critic. I mean, if I make a mistake, it's like, and I've learned how to change that. But I generally would have been much harder on myself than anyone I know. If anyone else would have made the same kind of mistake, I wouldn't be nearly as hard on them as I would be on myself.
I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. Is when I'm doing something I love or I'm working towards something that inspires me, I don't see the mistake as something that really sets me back. It's just, all right, that didn't work. Right, next. But when it's something I hate, like I'll give you an example. I used to do telesales. I used to be phoning people to sell advertising, and if I made a mistake or I didn't get the sale, I'd beat myself up more about it than I would if it's something I'm inspired by. It seemed like the mistake was amplified, but when it's something you're inspired by, it doesn't bother you because you're being pulled, I think, in a direction. It's just a learning curve, you know.
Right. And again, it's how you're looking at it. So your example of doing something you like, you're able to more easily have compassion with yourself. I suspect because you know you're doing something that makes sense to you, that's valuable and right in your life and what you want to do and become.
Yeah.
You're maybe a little more critical in the telesales scenario because that brings up a whole situation of how you're viewing yourself and what you're doing, and making a mistake just amplifies the fact that maybe you're not even in an area of where you should be, right? So again, there's a belief going on there too, right? So this is an opportunity. If you're like having this emotional, God, I'm so stupid, and it's like, well, why am I having such a strong emotional reaction to this? So that's a two-parter. One is it's important to practice compassion, but the other is if you're being very, very hard on yourself, what belief are you living in? I suspect there was a belief about being a telesalesman and who you saw yourself as that might have.
Yeah, it was. I hated it. I really didn't like it. And if I'm going to do it, I want it to come easy. I want the sales to come easy. And when they didn't come easy, then yeah, I would have. Back in the day, I would have beaten myself up more. But when I was young, playing football, like the business I'm building now, I make it all the time, every day. But it's just, it's just another obstacle to get past. It's more. I view it as a process of refinement rather than making a mistake. Okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work, and then you just find your way. It's strange, isn't it?
Right. And I think that's a very compassionate approach, right? What you just described, the refinement, or that didn't work. If that's a compassionate way to handle what you know. But let's talk about one more type of mistake. So what if, like, you showed up in a situation in a way that did not make you proud of yourself, right? Like maybe someone said something to you, or they made a mistake, or they did something, whatever it was, and you just laid into them, right? And
Yeah.
just tore them to pieces. And maybe that's not how you believe you are in the world, and how you choose not to be, or that's anti to how you are. So you could beat yourself up. You could say, wow, I'm really mean, and I'm just rotten. And, you could go that route. But as part of self-esteem, as part of your own sense of self-acceptance, it's like, you know what? I totally screwed up.
Had a bad moment.
I had a bad moment, exactly. And I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to learn what I can learn from it, and choose to make different choices moving forward. All right?
Absolutely.
And if there was something you need to repair, you take responsibility and you go and you repair it. Right?
Yeah, like apologizing to someone if you spoke out of turn and that sort of thing.
Exactly. So that's pretty much the self-esteem, self-acceptance area that I think is important, that should be taught in some manner, that should be encouraged. Maybe it creates, if you're going to be in a traditional school system, maybe they need a class, and the class is a safe space. And it's like, and it would take a very self-aware teacher to create that kind of environment.
Which leads on to my next question. How do we teach children or students of that age between 14 to 18? Do you have any ideas?
You need to provide this. You need to provide a safe space for them, a space that they feel safe in, that they can show up who they are. And it needs to be supported and encouraged and nurtured to a certain extent, right? Like there couldn't be any type of bullying allowed. It would have to be, it's kind of like when I do men's circles, right? We have agreements in our circles. This is what we agree to. We agree to respect each other. We agree to not, speak poorly, or we agree to own our own feelings. It's like, well, if I'm angry, it's like, I'm angry. It's not like you made me angry. I'm angry. Okay. So you would need to have a set of agreements, and you would need to provide opportunities for expression. Like, I'm feeling really bad about myself about this, and provide an opportunity for a student, a younger person, to get some feedback from their peer group that would be positive, that would be supportive. It's kind of like, I think about it like this. Body shame issues, right? As adults, men have body shame issues. I think it's maybe more prevalent or worse with women in our Western culture, but men also have body shame issues. And that all starts as children, right? And so I think fostering this self-esteem and this self-acceptance is being provided feedback about who I see you are, right? I don't see you necessarily as 40 pounds overweight, right? That's not who I see you. I see you as the person who is just there helping everyone. You are the person who is always smiling, always joking, or always has a kind word to say, or, it's the balance, because we are all those things, right?
Right.
So that's a difficult one. That's real. I don't have the answer. But would
it be a classroom setting where you'd run through the theory and maybe which is based on, I suppose, partly on the current school system, because there needs to be a transition, I guess. And then maybe other classes, it'd be something that is factored in as and when is needed, rather than, I mean, teachers will probably say they do that now, but do they do it enough? You know, like say that, I don't know, some lads are playing football or playing rugby, and they have an argument on the field. Does the PE teacher step in and apply these principles? Is it something that they need to say, right, after class, come and speak to me, and then sit down and talk to them both and implement these ideas, more so than just sort of, you know, just telling them off, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And obviously that's going to take more time, attention, and a greater self-awareness of whoever the instructor is trying to teach that, right? So now we're also back to who is doing the instruction, who is doing the facilitation, who is creating the space.
Right.
You know, and it's a tough road. As adults, as me as an adult, if I haven't dealt with my own crap, it's going to pop out in whatever I'm doing. So you need people teaching these courses or creating these scenarios who have dealt with their own stuff in healthy ways.
So basically, teachers need to, their education needs to be more diverse and consider these kind of principles, so then they can then relate it to the students. Yeah, that's vast. Yeah.
You know, and I think what you said too is like, you know, you teach the theory, you teach, you know, the ideas of self-esteem, the ideas of self-acceptance, you teach the ideas, but you need to provide workshops, you need to provide hands-on. Well, this is real life. Like I look in the mirror and I've just got a face full of zits. I feel like shit. I think I'm ugly, and I don't think I have any value at all. I mean, you have to create an environment where someone could say that and no one would like be teasing them or making fun of them, because that would be an honest expression of what's going on. And then once it's out there, you provide them an opportunity to look at things differently, to say what is really true about you. Maybe, yeah, you do have zits right now, right? But what is also true? Wow, you're excelling in sports, or you're excelling in this class or that class, or, you know, you're doing these extracurricular activities, or you're contributing in this way or that way. I mean, it's important to take in the whole person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when people are bullied, they probably think like that there's nothing that they have to offer whatsoever. If there is something they're good at, it's of no relevance to them because of how they feel about themselves.
Right. You know, the bullying issue, I mean, that brings up another area I think that's important that we need to discuss with kids in this age group, and it's about integrity. And I see as integrity as my actions, my words and actions are congruent. My words and my actions make sense. They work together. And the values I hold are instilling trust in others. That's integrity to me. And when I think of developing integrity, I think of areas of responsibility, I think of areas of accountability, and I think of boundaries. And I think those are important areas to help younger people, school-age kids, understand. I'm responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for my choices.
Yeah.
And I'm accountable for the consequences. I mean, sometimes if I'm going to tell you off, or if I'm not going to do my homework, or if I'm not going to study, I mean, I don't know what it is. There's consequences that happen, and maybe I understand what all of those consequences are, but maybe there's consequences I didn't know that would happen. And it's the unintended ones that sometimes we have to own up to. I mean, maybe it's an example like this. It's like I'm driving my parents' car. I'm having fun, and I've got my friends in my car, and somebody opened up a soda and it sprayed all over, and it misdirected my attention, and I went through a stop sign, and a cop was there, and I get a ticket. Okay, so I didn't intend to go through the stop sign. I did, but like the unintended consequence of that is my parents' insurance rates just went up because I'm on their insurance, right? So part of responsibility is, well, it's owning what happens. It's like, well, I didn't open the soda can that misdirected my attention. It was this guy, my friend's fault. But yet, I am in a car. I've created a scenario where my attention could be misdirected, or right, and so I have to own all those parts. And the other part is boundaries. And man, in the world we live in now, especially with dating and sex and everything that's going on with that, boundaries are important. It's important to be able to state your boundaries, be clear with them, and it's important to respect other people's boundaries. So part of that is making agreements, I think. Making agreements with yourself, making agreements with others, and keeping them.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Yeah, that teaches self-respect as well, doesn't it? 100%. But being able to have integrity with your own boundaries, because I think, especially in the dating world, people can forego their boundaries, especially.
So you kind of wrap it all up. If I have a strong self-esteem, I'm able to make my boundaries more easily. I'm able to adhere to them more clearly. If I understand integrity and how responsibility and accountability are part of my integrity as a human being, then I am able to make choices that more easily support my boundaries, that more easily respect other people's boundaries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See, this again, none of this is ever taught at school. So this again perfectly leads on to the next question. And you've probably seen this, men implementing boundaries. One of the things it says in your bio how men, they ask for what they want at home. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and how you think that would be relevant, and what benefits of implementing these principles into your life that we've already discussed? I know that seems obvious. We've kind of brushed up on it, but I want to then do a comparison with the ramifications of not implementing them.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is asking for what you want. In order to do that well and effectively, it means that you have the principles of self-esteem down, you have the principles of responsibility down, and asking for what you want doesn't mean you will always get it. Yeah. But what it does mean is you recognize the value you have. You recognize and respect who you are. And you also recognize the boundaries that may be involved for the reason that you're asking for what you want or saying what you want, right? If you can't ask for what you want, you're going to miss out on opportunities to help people partner with you, to help you in life and the things that you want to achieve. If you can't ask or say what you want, you will more easily be manipulated and seen as a person who does not need to be respected for their wants, desires, and boundaries. That's just how it is. You have to have a voice. So part of this process is owning your own voice to say yes, and owning your own voice to say no freely.
And that comes down to courage. That's something that needs to be taught at school, perhaps.
Yeah. And again, for me, courage, confidence, this all goes back to who I believe I am innately. And if we can create a strong sense of self in people, in children, if we can create a strong sense of self and value, They're excited to take challenges on. They're excited to create wild and magnificent dreams. They're excited to achieve goals. They're excited to contribute and make this world a whole lot better place.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, you said, what happens if we don't do these things? We
Yes.
miss out on talent. We miss out on contribution. We miss out on the full potential that an individual has to really make families better, communities better, our world in general better. We miss out on that.
That's so true, yeah. And so, yeah, it all comes down to, the formative years, really. And they really are, aren't they? Sort of between 13, 14 up to 18. This is when these things matter, because people's self-belief, confidence, as you say, is when it's formed, I think. And when they leave school and they go out into the big wide world and they go to work. Do you think there'd be a drastic shift if people were more self-accepting of themselves and had greater levels of self-belief and self-esteem? Do you think there'd be a drastic shift in society? I know that seems like a kind of a far-out question.
No, I absolutely do think that. That's why I'm a life coach. I completely believe in that concept. I completely believe that if a person, whether they're younger or they're older, and my gosh, let's make it happen when they're younger, so we don't have to have all this wasted time when we're older trying to sort it all out. I completely believe that a person is more able to engage in life, create the life and the vision that they have of what's special and unique about them and the talent and skills and abilities they can offer the world. I mean, that's what this is all about. We have to get out of our own way. I mean, we're all, to some extent, in our own way if we are not living fully in our potential. And we're in our own way based on beliefs that we have about ourselves that are holding us back. And so what you and I have just spoken about here are ways that we help stop these false beliefs from living in our heads and creating behaviors that stop us.
Yeah, it's really interesting something you said maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, how a belief then creates an emotion. It's something that I've recognized myself recently, is that my beliefs create an emotion. What I've started to do now is I just ignore it. I completely ignore myself, and I just stick to the process of certain things that I'm trying to achieve in life. Little disciplines every single day. But I ignore myself, basically, and I move forward. As long as I know I'm moving forward, that's
yeah.
Yeah. So is that something you kind of support?
Explain to me a little bit more when you say you ignore yourself. Give me an example.
Well, I just realised that it's a thought, and all thoughts, I suppose, are illusory, and an emotion is attached. And I suppose I've done a bit of meditation, that I realised that you become aware that thoughts and emotions are attached, and then some are self-sabotaging, and some aren't. The ones that are self-sabotaging, I recognise when they come now.
Yes.
And I realise what's happening, and I just ignore it.
Yes. Okay.
I'm not fully there. I wouldn't say I've completely got hold of it, but at least I recognise it, and I am progressing.
So I would use a different word other than ignore, because what you've just described to me is a thought comes in, or you're having a feeling, and you've recognized it, you've acknowledged it, and you choose not to act on it.
That's
and
right.
That's different than ignoring, because you recognize it for what it is. A thought is a thought. A thought is no different than clouds blowing through the sky, thoughts going through our brain. They just come and they go, and there's no rhyme nor reason sometimes. Okay? And sometimes, we're in a low mood, or a different kind of mood, or we have a different kind of emotion. It's like, okay, it's here. It also changes. It doesn't mean you need to act on it or stay in it. And so what you said, well, I know what my task is at hand. I know my next step in my goals, and I can go do it.
Yeah, I'm on the way. The hardest one I found was procrastination. The feeling of wanting to procrastinate. it's so easy to slip into. That's the one I found the hardest. I'm still working with it, but when I have those feelings, I recognize it, and then, yeah, I suppose, in your words, I choose just to do the next task, and then I say to myself, I lie to myself, and I say, I'll procrastinate after the next task, and when
Right.
that comes, then so on and so forth. I'm not fully there yet, but I'm on the way.
Yeah. And that's a great process to use. It's like if I want to take a nap as part of procrastination, it's like, okay, I'm going to work an hour and then I'll go take a nap if I want. But usually what happens, what I think you alluded to, is I get to the next thing and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I can keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then before you know it, you've completed all these little tasks.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
the last question I was going to ask you was, I suppose, is there any other principles that you think that we could implement between those ages? It doesn't necessarily have to be related to what you teach, but anything you can think of?
I think it's not too young, like 13, 14, 15, to help a person create a mission statement in their life. And what I love about mission statements or life purpose statements is it takes the skills and abilities and talents, interests that I have right now that I know about,
Mm-hmm.
and it puts them in action towards the world I want to create. So a mission is two parts. It's my vision of the world. It's the kind
Right.
of world I want to live in, the kind of world I want to help contribute and make. And it's my skills, talents, abilities that I have to help make that happen. And that's a mission statement. And I think that could be very exciting for a person and also serve as a kind of map to help them make choices. Do I say yes to this or no to this? Well, does this support my mission? Does it support the kind of world I want to create? Does it support me in my ability to contribute in the way I want to contribute? I don't think it's too early to create an awareness of that concept, because then when we have a clear mission, we're able to then set goals and create habits that support that mission.
I agree with that. And would you agree with this, that even children at a young age, I'm not even talking about teenagers, maybe even younger, people already tend to know what they want to do deep down, but they're kind of confused by this. I think they use it on Mind. The phrase on Mind Valley is the culture scape. It blocks what's going on inside. People like, I get the impression, I knew what I wanted to be when I was younger, and I get the impression young children already do. You can see by what they gravitate towards naturally.
I understand what you're saying. There's an energy. There's an energy that people have. There's things that make them joyful, especially as kids. Yeah. And I think that's very key. The things that made us happiest as children, the things that made us express and feel joy, usually involved situations or an environment that we could thrive in, that we could contribute in. And I think that aspect does provide a big key to what we're good at and what we would like to do. I don't know about, I definitely know I wanted to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher or an astronaut or whatever. I don't know about that part of it. But I think there is truth in the things that made us brought us great joy as children are still the things that will bring us great joy as adults. And it's important to participate in that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a nice note to end on. So what I'm going to do now, Todd, is there any links that you want to mention? So for people that will be viewing this video in the future?
Sure. I have a website. It's www.empoweredmencoaching.com.
Yep.
So can be contacted there. I also have a Facebook business page. which is also facebook.com, Empowered Men Coaching. And I have a lot of content and current issues and discussions in my Facebook page there. So, and I'm available through Messenger.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, okay, Todd. So anyone who's going to be viewing this video, feel free to subscribe at the bottom. I'll leave any comments, and thanks for watching. We'll go and end the recording now, okay?
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers, Todd.